Why, hello everybody. Good evening, good day, good morning, wherever you are and whenever you're listening. So I'm going to do this. I've decided I'm going to do two videos to go through this most recent school board meeting, which was last night. It just for perspective, like number one, I'd love to do a live video. I'm in Facebook jail currently because apparently calling out the city commission meeting participants, the doctors who are basically lying at the city commission meeting. Supposedly that's adult sexual exploitation, which is bizarre. So somebody turned me in clearly just to mess with me, which is fine. I mean, that's the only way you can get rid of the truth is to try to bury it. So anyway, I'm going to do this. I'm going to break this into two meetings. It took me probably five and a half hours to get through all of this, the 3.5 hour meeting. Again, I just wanted to say this because it's not simply I just watch it and then I'm good to go. I mean, you got to rewind some parts. You want to re-listen. I want to hear what they said. I got to write it down. So I have 7 pages of notes to go through. There was so freaking much in this video, the meeting that was, I mean, it's ridiculous. So first of all, public speakers, I want to talk about, first of all, Devin talked first and made some excellent points. And again, he brings up the reason that governance should not be at 5 members. And there's going to be a recurring theme throughout this video. And I'm going to show multiple times where this gets brought up. But governance being at 5 is a quorum of the board. Now, what happens is the board now, because it's a quorum, the governance committee, because it's a quorum, gets to speak as the board. They get to speak as the full board because they're a quorum. The issue, though, is that they don't allow the other board members to be on. It'd be one thing if just everyone was on governance, but they don't do it that way. Rebecca gets to appoint people to governance. And apparently what we covered at this meeting is that she appoints the other committee chairs who she appoints the committee chairs. Now, Rebecca tried to refute this by saying, well, no, I just appoint them and the full board has to vote for it. Okay, so if you have the majority of people who are on your side in general, it's going to be a 7-2 vote no matter what. They're going to agree with you no matter what. So yeah, David was right when he said, you appoint, we don't get to be on governance. His point was David and Jennifer do not get to be on governance. That's intentional. And I find it interesting, and I'll cover this in a little bit. Rebecca appointed an ad hoc committee to go over the superintendent review and compensation and year end. And guess what? She didn't put David or Jennifer on there. She put Robin as the chair, Seth and Tracy, the 3 members, and they're going to sit down with Dr. Gandhi, and go over his reviews. Totally, I guarantee they're not going to mention anything negative because that's the way they do this. And I'm going to show a video here in a little bit of Rebecca and how she swoons over. It's just weird. Rebecca, it's weird. It's just weird. What is your infatuation with Dr. Gandhi? It's weird. It's bizarre. So Devin brought up some great points. He also mentioned how when you have to be careful that when you make these rule changes, eventually you're not going to be in the majority. And when that happens, this stuff can be used against you. So just one of the common themes with the majority of these board members is they don't think. Like, they think in the immediate, but they don't fast forward. They don't think long term. How is this going to affect? What's the ramifications? They don't do that. So it's irritating. The other thing, Matt gets up and speaks, and he was very specific, and he gets screwed over. They cut his time. The timer went off about halfway in. He did not get his full 5 minutes. So, and I know he's probably going to handle that, but he speaks specifically to the way that I assume it's Anne Marie creates the meeting minutes, and how he said, I spoke at a meeting, and what I said was misconstrued. I wasn't making any comment towards the public and disinformation. I was commenting on Dr. Tracy speaking to Fargo Cast Public Health's misinformation. And so he was bringing up a very good point, saying that, and you guys aren't even doing your memos correctly. You have not given public sufficient notice for this certain memo that they were going to try to vote through. So Devin and Matt, they did a wonderful job. Noelle gets up and she spoke, and she did great as well. Very passionate plea saying, you guys aren't listening. Board members, you're not listening to the parents. And of course they're not. Of course they're not. Why would you want to listen to the parents? So I'm going to mention briefly. So this first video will probably be about 10 minutes. The next one will be about 30. I figured if I did this in one video, it'd be about 45 minutes long. That's how much stuff we need to go through. I'm going to show videos. It's going to be good. They talked about graduation success as a metric, and it's what they do is they look at how many kids then they start, do they graduate, and the numbers are down. Go figure. And it's just amazing listening to Dr. Gandhi make excuses. Well, there are other indicators of success. Well, if they don't graduate, I think that's pretty clear that we're doing something wrong. We're failing those children. So I'm going to fly through this, so just hang with me. Rebecca. Every single time she speaks, almost every single time she speaks, the very last thing she says is, Dr. Gandhi, do you have anything you'd like to share on that? Why are you Take control, Rebecca. You are the president. Be the president. Be in charge. Stop asking for Dr. Gandhi to just reaffirm or speak against or whatever. He's not a board member. I don't know how many times I got to say this. He's not a board member. He shouldn't get full carte blanche authority or opportunity to speak whenever he wants to. Every time he raises his hand, she calls on him. And again, I'm going to come to this in a little bit. I'm going to play this clip of Rebecca, and it's just gross. And I'll play this here in a little bit. I'm going to say this again. Yes, Dr. Gandhi's the problem. And I do mean Dr. Gandhi's got to go. I think Dr. Gandhi's the problem. I think he's super, super smart, and he's probably good at managing people, but he's the problem, especially for the board. I can maybe make an argument if the board put their hand down and said, fist down, and said, no more talking, he'd be better. But the fact that right now, he controls them. He controls this board. He will, and he does this thing so subtly. He's so smart. He will start talking really, really fast, and he talks really fast and really lowers his voice and kind of goes away from the mic. And he does that on purpose because then he's making himself sound really, really smart. And what it does is it makes these board members insecure to ask questions. The other thing he does really well is he knows that David at one point got really fired up, and we'll talk about this. I'll show you the clip. Gandhi was sitting right next to him, head down like this. He knew enough not to push David because he can sense, I'm not going to push him. But what he'll do is anytime a board member says something he doesn't like, if he feels like that board member's waffling, he'll go after the board member, which is highly inappropriate. They hire you, Dr. Gandhi. You are not their boss. They are your boss. You be quiet. You sit there, you be quiet, and you do not speak unless you're asked to speak. And Rebecca, stop asking him to speak. Anyway, I want to talk about the substitute issue. This is so wildly frustrating. The analogy I'm going to use on this is, so what's happened? David Paulson is asked, he wanted to raise the substitute pay from $112 a day for subs to $200 a day for subs. At least in a sunshine clause, meaning it's going to end at the end of this year. So however many months we have left. And he's saying, we have a problem. He gave examples. There are classrooms that have 3 classrooms in one class, one teacher. Can you imagine 3 classrooms of kindergartners with one teacher, 3 classrooms of 4th graders with one teacher? Just think about that. That is a problem. That you cannot argue that we're getting great learning opportunities for these children when we don't have a teacher. So he's saying, we got to fix the problem. We have to fix the problem. So he promoted this, and this got pushed off from the previous meeting, February 8th. It gets pushed off, I think February 8th, February something. It got pushed off into one of the planning committee. The planning committee comes back. Jim Johnson has to go out, and he basically, I don't want to say he lies, but he uses a slippery slope logical fallacy where he's basically like, well, if we do this, it's going to cost us $1 million. And then David was like, no, it's not. My quick and dirty math, this is how many days that we have for teacher sub days. This is the amount of money we're increasing. This times this equals that number. And it was like a third of what Jim said. And then Jackie, can't remember what her last name is. They asked her and she's like, yeah, the way he did it was right. So David was right, Jim was wrong. But Jim was just trying to basically conflate the issue. He's trying to scare them and say, it's $1 million. And then he's like, well, and if we do the 200, then what are we going to do next year? We're going to have to keep it that way. No, you're not. You're not required to do that. We're trying to fix an immediate problem this year. We'll have all summer to figure out what to do next year. But this year we have a problem. Seth is like, well, I'm not sold on the dollar amount. I think 200. I agree. We have to do something, but I'm not sold on the dollar amount. And then when he was asked, well, Rebecca was like, okay, well, what dollar amount do you think is appropriate? He wouldn't give a solution. He wouldn't give an option. He wouldn't give his opinion. He just kept his mouth shut. Not that one, but I don't know. I don't want to offer anything. It baffles my brain. The analogy I use right now with the substitute teacher issue in Fargo Public Schools, the house is on fire. So imagine you're in your house and it's on fire, right? You can see the shades are coming down and you can see the walls are starting to crack. The house is on fire. And then you get Rebecca, sweet Rebecca. Let's talk about it. I don't think we should do any action. Let's talk about it. We should have a broader conversation about this, and I think we just keep the conversation going. And you know what? Let's let Rebecca speak for Rebecca. And you tell me what you think. All right. So here's the meeting. I pulled it up, and let me make sure I got the volume on. Full blast. I do. Full blast. Great. Let's hear what Rebecca has to say.
Why is that done when we
is this the right one? 150.
And that's setting it. Why should the board?
Okay, thank you. Jim, I know you had your hand up. Were you saying?
Okay, I have the wrong time, obviously, for this. 150/30?
Right. So it's different information that we have in this memo. That's just wanting to make sure that.
Give me a second, people.
So I think this is a really interesting and important conversation to be having. And I'm not quite sure yet where I'm going to be going with this. Part of the reason I say that is, one, I do like the fact that there is a sunset on this right now, and that it could be.
She keeps rambling.
As information to gather to see how it might impact our current situation, and so if there could be potential, not as much of a risk as what there could be if we were looking at having this be long term, and I realize that.
So she takes a long time to say anything.
Depending upon if this motion were to pass, and we were starting to see an increase in helping to fill our subs, then we might end up having this same kind of a conversation down the road. If it doesn't help, then it doesn't cost as much. The other challenge, though, that I have, and I was wondering if this was discussed at planning at all or not. Maybe not, because it doesn't pertain to the motion, but there are so many other areas in the district within our budget and with our staffing that I feel, and likely many of us feel, need to be addressed regarding.
So I'm going to stop there. It's super hard for me to listen to her because she just sits there and rambles and rambles and rambles. So I wonder why my times I had on here were off. But that was basically what she says is numerous times she says throughout this meeting. And if you listen to it, it's so freaking annoying. But she talks about, well, this is just such a good conversation. And this conversation, we should keep having this conversation. Like, no, we shouldn't keep having this conversation. We should not. So now I'm going to turn to David. He has a very heartfelt plea, and I just want I want to highlight this because it's so important and so fitting that he would say this, because it just perfectly illustrates how inept this board is.
Pretty obvious to me that it's going to fail. So I just want to leave you with a final thought. If we continue to pay our substitute teachers $112 a day, in essence, what we are telling those people is that the job they are doing for us is no more important than the job of flipping burgers, because they're getting the same amount of pay. I consider our substitute teachers grossly underpaid. I know that with the terrible shortage that we've had in subs, that I believe all of our administrators have stepped into a classroom for the day. I subbed for a semester, and it was the most harrowing experience of my life. It was so much more difficult than being an actual classroom teacher that I couldn't even explain it to you. The fact that these people are willing to come and sub at all is the kudos should go to those people. I don't know how I would thank them for the job they do, because it is a very, very difficult job. And to pay them the same amount of money that they could make at virtually every place that has a help wanted sign up, it's an insult. And if you are going to vote down this motion, I hope that someone will come back with a motion to show a significant increase and show these people that we value them.
Yeah, so that's such a good, passionate plea. And then again, guess what happens? They voted down. They voted it down. Nobody gave anything else. You get Rebecca. It's just great conversation. And I just hope administration, you're listening. I know you're listening to this, and hopefully you know that we're all concerned. No, Rebecca, you're not concerned, because if you were really concerned, you would have agreed, or you would have given us something other than $200 a day. They kept saying, well, I'm not sure I'm agreeing with that. I don't agree with that number. Then put it 150, 175, 132. Pick a different number. The house is on fire. It's on fire. You have to do something. Our kids are suffering because of your ineptitude. And then you get, I'm not sure how much I want to beat this horse, but they voted it down 7-2, of course. David and Jennifer, the only two that voted to pay the subs more. Everybody else is just like, we'll just keep talking about it. And I think that this is something that the administration should handle. Brian, aka the Penguin, he said, well, I wonder if music and math could use an extra $300,000. That is so not germane to the conversation. We had just heard throughout the meeting. He tries to. This is a potentially it's a straw man conversation where he's saying, well, if we give $300,000 to the subs, then that means we're going to lose the money over here. That's a straw man. That is not at all the argument we're making. That is not at all what's happening. David is saying we have a problem. We have to fix it. There's no two ways around it. Brian tries, well, in my 26 years as a superintendent. All that tells me is you're old and you need to get off the board. That's all that tells me, Brian. I'm not impressed because you were a superintendent for 26 years. I don't care. You're an idiot. What you just said there goes contrary. The house is on fire and you're arguing that we should, well, let's just move to the bedroom instead of the living room because it's a little cozier. Makes absolutely no sense. No sense at all. Let me see. I'm going to scroll down. Yeah, great conversation. And then Rebecca tries to say, but the paras need to be paid more too. We're not talking about paras. That's not what we're talking about. God bless paras. That's not the conversation. The motion was specific to substitute teachers, and you're trying to morph it into this other thing, and then you're trying to say, we're all compassionate. We all care deeply about this issue, but we're not going to take any action. God forbid we do anything about it. No, we'll send it to a different committee and we'll just keep talking about it. Great conversation, everybody. I think we really accomplished something with this really good conversation. She drives me absolutely insane. And then Nikki Bobblehead just sits there and does this. And I wish we had a magic checkbook. This is literally what she said. I wish we had a magic checkbook. And so then instead of saying, well, we can't do this because I'd love to be able to pay these people what they're worth, but we can't possibly do that because we don't have a magic checkbook. But then on the other hand, doesn't offer any solutions at all. Just Nikki Bobblehead. That's her new nickname is Nikki Bobblehead. And then Seth, well, what if all the neighboring districts change too? That's a good thing for substitute teachers. I feel like you should probably just pay people what they're worth, Seth. I mean, in your socialist world, don't you, isn't that your kind of one of your advocate points is you pay these people what they're worth? Isn't that kind of what you stand for? It's kind of weird. I'm coming back to you in my next video, Seth. I'm going to spend a lot of time on you and some of the things that you said. And Jennifer is great. She called him out. It's so dumb. She's like, the word operational is overused. It's an overused excuse. Anytime they don't want to do anything, that's operational. We'll send it over to administration. Rebecca, administration, they're hearing us. They're hearing us right now. And they know we're concerned. And Gandhi also knows that you're not going to do anything. So he's not going to do anything. David made the great point. He goes, we've had the same problem for 2 years, at least. They've done nothing. They've done nothing to fix it. They're not fixing it. So just saying administration will fix it. If they were going to fix it, they would have already fixed it. It's time for the board to step in and be the board. Be in charge. Act like it. I will say this, and I know I'm going to cover this in my next video, and I'll say it here and there. Rebecca needs to go. At the minimum, she needs to step down as president. She's ineffectual. She doesn't govern the meetings well, and she constantly asks for Gandhi to interject. She needs to step down. And whenever time I say Gandhi's the problem, the reason he's the problem is that Rebecca allows him to be the problem. She's a weak leader, and she needs to step down from that leadership position because she's ineffectual, she's weak, and she allows Gandhi to push the board around. She's the problem. Now, I know Gandhi's the problem, but she's letting him be the problem, which makes her the root cause of the problem. And half the time, she doesn't say anything. She wastes so much time not saying anything of value. It is nauseating. So, break here. Don't go anywhere. This is the first video. I'm going to have to upload this to Rumble, which takes minimum an hour. I wish these things were automatic and they just happen in like really quickly. They don't. So it takes me a time. It takes the Rumble. I have to upload it. So hang tight. I'll get the second video out later today. And that's going to be spicy. You thought this was good? Just wait.